O eternal and almighty God, from whom all power and wisdom come, we are assembled here before thee to frame such laws as may tend to the welfare and prosperity of our province. Grant, O merciful God, we pray thee, that we may desire only that which is in accordance with thy will, that we may seek it with wisdom and know it with certainty and accomplish it perfectly, for the glory and honor of thy name and for the welfare of all our people. Amen. We acknowledge we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishin, Inuak, Dakota Oyate, Dene Sioux Lene, and Nihi-Thowug nations. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Good morning, everybody. Please be seated, and I have a statement for the House. I'm advising the House that I have received letters from the official opposition House Leader and the Honourable Member for River Heights regarding selected bills for this session. As a reminder to the House, Rule 25 permits each recognized party to select up to 3 private members' bills per session, and each independent member 1 private member's bill per session to proceed to a second reading vote. The official opposition House Leader has advised that her caucus has selected Bill 241, the Drivers and Vehicles Amendment Act, license plates for MMIWG2S, awareness, as their 3rd selected bill for this session. In accordance with the official opposition House Leader's letter, this bill will be considered on Thursday, October 27th, 2022 as follows. Debate at second reading will begin at 10 a.m. Question put on the second reading motion at 10:55 a.m. The Honourable Member for River Heights has advised that he has chosen Bill 201, the Regional Health Authorities Amendment Act, as his selected bill for this session, as per Rule 25. In accordance, the member's letter, this bill will be considered on Tuesday, November 1st as follows. Debate at second reading will begin at 10:30. Question put on the second reading motion at 10:55 a.m. Orders of the day, private members' business, the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you and good morning, Madam Speaker. On House business, I have a couple of leave requests. Just contextually, before I enter those leave requests, I want to thank the Honourable Member for St. John's, Honourable Member for River Heights. Discussions yesterday on the 2 issues. One is, after some further discussion with the Iranian community, a slightly different private members resolution for the 11 o'clock hours being proposed. And secondly, while yesterday was an important day, it wasn't actually a sitting day, and so that caused some timing issues with introductions of bills. So those are the contexts that I've shared with my friends, the opposition House leaders. So first, could you please canvass the House for leave to allow debate on a revised version of PMR number 25, calling on the federal government to stand in unity with the Manitoba Legislature and support religious freedom, which was previously announced for debate this morning at 11 a.m. and is listed on the order paper. If leave is granted, I can provide copies of the updated version for members, and I would note that the title of the revised version is Calling on the Federal Government to Stand in Unity with the Manitoba Legislature and Support Human Rights of Iranian Protesters.
Is there leave to allow debate on a revised version of PMR 25, calling on the federal government to stand in unity with the Manitoba Legislature and support religious freedom, which was previously announced for debate this morning at 11 and is listed on the order paper? Is there leave? Leave has been granted, and copies of the updated wording will be provided for members. The Honourable Government House Leader.
I thank the House for that. I can table copies of the updated private members resolution. I'm advised by the clerk it doesn't need to be tabled, but I certainly did provide copies yesterday to the House leaders, so they are aware of that. Second, could you then please canvass the House for leave to allow debate this morning at concurrence and third reading of Bills 233 and 237, despite the fact that they are not yet on the order paper.
Is there leave to allow debate this morning at concurrence and third reading of Bills 233 and 237, despite the fact that they are not yet on the order paper? Is there leave? Leave has been granted. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker, and again, thank you to members of the House. So could you please call the following bills for debate at concurrence and third reading in this order? Bill number 240 will be considered from 10 a.m. or from now till 10:20. Bill 237 will be considered from 10:20 to 10:40 or as soon as Bill 240 is completed. And Bill 233 will be considered from 10:40 till 11 or as soon as Bill 237 is completed.
So it has been announced that the following bills will be debated at concurrence and third reading this morning in this order. Bill 240 will be considered from 10 to 10:20. Bill 237 will be considered from 10:20 to 10:40 or as soon as Bill 240 is completed. And Bill 233 will be considered from 10:40 to 11 or as soon as Bill 237 is completed. I will therefore call concurrence and third reading on Bill 240. The Jewish Heritage Month Act. The Honourable Member for Springfield-Richot.
Madam Speaker, I move, seconded by the MLA for Rossmere, that Bill number 240, the Jewish Heritage Month Act, be reported from the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development, be concurred in, and be now read for a third time and passed.
It has been moved by the Honourable Member for Springfield-Richot, seconded by the Honourable Member for Rossmere, that Bill 240, the Jewish Heritage Month Act, be concurred in and be now read for a third time and passed. The Honourable Member for Springfield-Richot.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and good morning to everyone. Bill 240, the Jewish Heritage Month Act, is a bill that I'm very proud to be sponsoring. I am personally a strong supporter of the Jewish community and the state of Israel. So I first of all want to start by thanking all members of this legislature for supporting this bill on a unanimous basis. And isn't it timely that yesterday we saw sworn in the first Jewish lieutenant governor in the history of Manitoba? Now it just happens that it coincides with today that Her Honor Anita Neville was sworn in yesterday as our Lieutenant Governor, and what a beautiful ceremony that was. I know that we were all moved by it. It was just very regal, and it was just beautifully done. The entire service was just amazing. This bill recognizes the Jewish community. It recognizes their contributions in making Manitoba a better place to live. And for many of us who've been here for years, and we've been part of Yom HaShoah, which takes place here at the legislature, and outside of COVID was always an integral part of our session. We know how much the Jewish people have struggled over the years. The persecution is second to none. It seems to be that when countries go into difficult times, one of the first things they do is they turn on their Jewish population. And the Jewish community has had to struggle much over the years. In fact, Her Honor spoke to us a little bit about the challenges she had and her family had. And she talked about coming out of what was then not Belarus, but Bessarab, I think she said, which is now part of the Soviet Union, and was part of the Ukraine where her family came from. And the kinds of programs that they were fleeing, that there was systematic annihilation of individuals of Jewish faith. So we believe that this is important. This is something that the community has supported, and we are very proud and we are very supportive of the Jewish community. And anytime that we have the opportunity to, we less so in the last 2.5 years because of COVID, but going forward, we know that we will continue to go to Folklorama and all the other activities that they have in the Jewish community and be able to celebrate with them. We really do think that this bill is timely. And Madam Speaker, I would conclude by saying let's move Bill 240 on for royal assent, and wouldn't it be nice if we could do it on a unanimous basis? With those few comments, I thank the House for their support.
I have on my list the Honourable Member for Wolseley.
Madam Speaker, today is a wonderful opportunity to review the story of the Jewish Manitoban experience and recognize the contributions that Jews have made to our province. And we also take this as an opportunity to reiterate the Manitoba NDP's commitment to fight anti-Semitism. We encourage and support the Jewish community as they continue to practice their faith and culture in this province. The first Jews to settle permanently in Manitoba did so in 1877 and soon established themselves in farming communities and as railroad workers. By 1881, there were 33 Jewish families in Manitoba. By the early 1900s, 9,000 Jews lived in Manitoba, mostly in the north end of Winnipeg. And many Jews were involved in the labor movement of the early 20th century and helped to organize the Winnipeg General Strike. One of these Jews was Abraham Heaps, who was one of the leaders of the Winnipeg General Strike and elected to Parliament for Winnipeg North in 1925, where he served until 1940. He used his position in the minority government that followed him from the 1925 election to push for Canada's first old age pension, was a founding member of the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, and pushed the Liberal government under Mackenzie King to allow Jewish refugees from the Nazis into Canada. Joe Zukin was another prominent left-wing civic politician who served for many decades after having taken the political torch from previous civic politician Jacob Penner. And the tradition of political activism by the Jewish community continued. Many prominent provincial politicians were from the Jewish community, including Saul Miller, Saul Cherniak, and Sidney Green, all cabinet ministers in the Schreier government. Roland Penner in the government of Howard Pauley, Sidney Spivak, a former head of the PC Party of Manitoba, and Israel Asper, former head of the Provincial Liberal Party. Another political activist that I want to take the opportunity to recognize today was my dear friend Karen Lukes. Karen actually died of ALS on January 25th, 2008, but she was a proud Jew. She introduced my daughter to traditional foods, actually the very first time she ever ate solid food, so that's a fun memory in our family. But Karen was a longtime political activist and was a longtime employee of the Winnipeg's Morgentaler Clinic, and just such a role model for feminist leadership in this province. I also want to take this opportunity to offer my personal congratulations to Her Honourable Anita Neville, who was sworn in yesterday as Manitoba's 26th Lieutenant Government, but also making history by being the first Jew to serve in this role in Canada. As everywhere else in Canada, Jews faced anti-Semitism in Manitoba. Many communities excluded Jews. We know that Jews were often restricted from buying cottages or beachfront property, even restricted from going to beaches. Jews were excluded from various golf and curling clubs and from settling in specific neighborhoods throughout Winnipeg. In the 30s and 40s, the University of Manitoba had an unofficial quota system limiting the number of Jews who could apply for programs like medicine, and on and on. I don't want to cause harm to anyone listening to this by reiterating the amount of anti-Semitism that did in fact exist in Manitoba, historically in a very systemic way, but we also know that anti-Semitism sadly continues today in a less systemic way, but sometimes in a more personal or less obvious way. One resource to learn about the history of the Jewish community in Winnipeg is The Jews of Winnipeg, produced by the National Film Board in the 1970s and available for viewing online. It gives a general overview of Jewish history up to the 70s, but also provides an in-depth view as to how the Jewish community in Manitoba saw themselves at that time. It highlights the nightly program, The Jewish Hour on Channel 9, in which Noah Whitman would provide, quote, local gossip and news in Yiddish, followed by Hebrew folk songs. By 1970, Winnipeg was being referred to as the Jerusalem of Canada, but even with increased standing, one Jewish Winnipegger lamented that no matter what he did, he would always feel like a foreigner. The population of Jews in Manitoba reached its zenith in the early 1970s when approximately 19 to 20,000 Jews called Manitoba home. And since that time, the number of Jews in Manitoba has slightly declined, but we still enjoy and appreciate a strong population of Jews living in this province. I'm going to basically leave it there. I know that we support this bill, and just wanted to take the opportunity to put a few words on the record to appreciate the Jews in my life, to appreciate the Jews that have helped to build this province, and particularly those who have served in public office and who have served in the labor movement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for River Heights.
Madam Speaker, on this bill to recognize Jewish Heritage Month, it's important to begin by noting that we are in this chamber writing history, as we did yesterday, with Anita Neville becoming the first person of Jewish background to be Lieutenant Governor in the province that we live in. Her appointment was based on exceptional experience that she has had as school trustee, as a member of Parliament, her efforts to advance the rights of women, to advance education, and to advance reconciliation. So I congratulate formally the Honourable Anita Neville for becoming Lieutenant Governor, and recognize today that this is part of the Jewish heritage that we are now going to be recognizing. We can learn much from the history and the teachings which are part of the Jewish tradition. We must recognize that here in Manitoba, thanks to the leadership of prominent members of our Jewish community, Israel Asper and Gail Asper, we have the Museum for Human Rights. And it has an important role and does document what happened during the Holocaust. And it is something that we all need to remember to make sure that genocides like that don't happen again. It is in that tradition.
Order, please. As indicated earlier and agreed by the House, the comments on this bill are to be concluded at 10:20. And I will now put the question. The question before the House is concurrence in third reading of Bill number 240, the Jewish Heritage Month Act. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed? Agreed, and so ordered. I declare the motion carried. I will now call concurrent. I will now call concurrence and third reading of Bill 237, the Drivers and Vehicles Amendment Act, Poppy number plates. The Honourable Member for Brandon East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I move, seconded by the member from Dauphin, that Bill number 237, the Drivers and Vehicles Amendment Act, Poppy number plates, reported from the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development, be concurred in and be now read for a third time and passed.
It has been moved by the Honourable Member for Brandon East, seconded by the Honourable Member for Dauphin, that Bill number 237, the Drivers and Vehicles Amendment Act, Poppy number plates, be concurred in and be now read for a third time and passed. The Honourable Member for Brandon East.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. It's always a pleasure when you can bring bills forward into the House that come right from the community to really show that all of us in this House work for our constituents. And that's where this bill came from. Was from a constituent who wanted to move this bill forward. And so in consultation that I held for quite some time with a number of organizations, one of them was the Brandon Royal Canadian Legion Brandon Branch number 3. And during our public presentation, public consultation that we held I believe it was on October 12th, which provided some misfortune for the Legion where they were unable to attend in person or online to present to the committee. I have been asked by the Royal Canadian Legion Branch Number 3 if I could read their submission during my third reading, and I will table it as well. I'm not sure if that's necessary if I'm reading it, but I will table it, Madam Speaker, because she does use my name in it, which I will not be reading as per rules of the House. But I will start off. It says, good evening. Thank you for allowing me the privilege of speaking before the House on this evening of October 12th, 2022. My name is Linda Wakefield. Currently, I am the second Vice President of the Royal Canadian Legion Brandon Branch Number 3. On behalf of our President, Fred Pritchard, and Executive, I would like to thank our MLA, Brandon East, and then she mentions my name, for presenting Bill 237, Drivers and Vehicles Amendment Act, poppy number plates. As members of the Royal Canadian Legion, our mission is to serve veterans, including serving military and RCMP members and their families, to promote remembrance, and to serve our communities and our country. We are encouraged by the presentation of this bill, and with its passage would ensure that retired RCMP members may be able to proudly display the veterans plates on their vehicles. And we, at Royal Canadian Branch, Brandon Branch Number 3, fully support and hope that this bill, number 237, will move forward with royal consent. I thank you all for your time. So with support, I won't take a long time here this morning. We have debated this bill before, but I do want to just again thank everybody for all their input over the course of presenting this idea to a number of Manitobans and Canadians, as I did reach outside the province in Ottawa as well. I want to thank them for their input, for their support, and I particularly want to thank all military and RCMP members currently serving and past serving. I want to thank them for their dedication and their support to all of us here in Manitoba. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for the Maples.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's my honor to put a few comments on Bill 237, the Drivers and Vehicle Amendment Act, the poppy number plate. I'd like to thank the member from Brandon East for bringing forward a very important bill. And as he mentioned that where people have from his constituency were asking for this kind of bill to be brought forward. And this is why we are here, raising our constituencies' concern and bringing those good ideas to this legislature and to debate and to pass those bills too. This bill amends the Driver and Vehicle Act to allow honorable serving or discharged member of the Royal Canadian Forces and former member of Royal Canadian Mounted Police Force to have license plate with the red poppy and Canadian flag to them. The NDP believe that we have the responsibility to remind ourselves and all Manitobans of important sacrifice that those who have served have made for our countries. And we are committed to always supporting our veterans. The military has played an important role, past and present, in Manitoba, and we continue to support and honor our veteran and current member of armed forces. We owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to our veterans for the sacrifice they have made defending Canada around the world in wars and peacekeeping missions. Our veterans have fought for our rights and freedom, sometimes in cost of their own lives. We have a shared responsibilities, government, schools, and parents alike, to continuously remind ourselves and our children of their sacrifice. This bill is one important way that we can make sure veterans in Manitoba are honored. Madam Speaker, I'd like to highlight a few of the important that NDP had done for veterans in the past. In 2012, NDP government passed a bill that proclaimed November 5th to 11th as a Remembrance Day Awareness Week and required schools to hold a Remembrance Day event on the last school day before Remembrance Day. In 2012, we also signed a memorandum of understanding to strengthen economic, cultural, and historical ties with the Lower Normandy, the region where so many of our veterans fought during D-Day in 1944. We also designated Trans-Canada Highway west of Winnipeg as the Highway of Heroes in remember happy to support this bill, and thank you.
The honourable member for River Heights.
Madam Speaker, it is an honor to stand in the chamber and to say some positive words about our armed forces, to support the inclusion of active members of the armed forces who've honorably served for at least a year as being able to have a poppy license plate, a license plate with a red poppy and the Canadian flag. It is a tribute to our Canadian Armed Forces for the work they have done for so many years in protecting and advancing democracy in 2 world wars, in the Korean War, the war in Afghanistan, many peacekeeping efforts, and many efforts in response to emergencies in Canada, including during the COVID pandemic and most recently the Fiona hurricane in the Maritimes. They are critically important to all of us, to the stability and the future of Canada. We are also honoring the former members of the Canadian Armed Forces who were honorably discharged, and it is right and proper that they too are allowed to have the poppy license plates with a red poppy and a Canadian flag on it. And it is also appropriate that we honor the former members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Force who have voluntarily resigned in good standing from the force. This is a recognition of the important role that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have played in the history of our country. It's not to take away or dismiss some of the recent concerns that have been raised about the RCMP, but it is at this point to recognize that they have been a significant presence and a significant help in terms of security in Canada. With those few words, Madam Speaker, I will hope that this bill moves on to pass 3rd reading and become law later in the next few days.
Is the House ready for the question? The question before the House is concurrence in 3rd reading of Bill number 237, the Drivers and Vehicles Amendment Act, poppy number plates. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. I declare the motion carried. I will now call concurrence. I will now call concurrence in 3rd reading of Bill number 233, the Engineering and Geoscientific Professions Amendment Act. The Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move, seconded by the member for Midland, that Bill number 233, the Engineering and Scientific Professions Amendment Act, be reported from the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development, be concurred in, and be now read for a 3rd time and passed.
It has been moved by the Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie, seconded by the Honourable Member for Midland, that Bill number 233, the Engineering and Geoscientific Professions Amendment Act, be now reported from the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development, be concurred in, and be now read for a 3rd time and passed. The Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to put a few words on the record to thank the engineers and geoscientists profession for working so closely with us. It is a very involved bill, but an update that was necessary. to deal with some of the ongoing issues in appeals and also in hearing process, and then also to deal with the developing issues when it comes to new immigrants and their status from professions training in other jurisdictions and how it might be recognized. This is going to be very important, I think, moving forward in our future. We are definitely going to be facing a need for more engineers and geoscientists in the future. There are people out there that are trained in other jurisdictions, and we need to have the proper mechanisms in place to recognize the skill set that they have, the experience that they have gained in not only here, but in other places. And as we move forward, this is going to be what builds Manitoba in many ways. Especially with the number of new immigrants that we have been having come to Manitoba with a good skill set already. So I'd like to thank the opposition for cooperating on this bill. I think this is good for all of Manitoba, and I think this is something that we're all very happy to recognize, and I look forward to their continued support in the future. Thank you.
The honourable member for St. Michel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm happy to put a few words on the record in respect of Bill 233, the Engineering and Geoscientist Professions Amendment Act. I think this bill takes a couple of interesting steps in terms of enhancing and modernizing where engineers and geoscientists are currently in Manitoba. It makes direct changes to their scope of professions and their licenses that engineers can obtain, and it allows for enhanced responsibilities and views and work that can be done by those within a specific scope of licenses. And that gives and provides opportunities to engineers who might have been left on the sideline before, those engineers who are able to work in just a specific field. And so it opens the door for more engineers to be working in those fields. And I think this is a good thing because it helps to move along our industries in Manitoba, but also combined with their change that they're making to their appeals and to ensuring that engineers and geoscientists are working properly, it also enhances the number of engineers that can work and also ensures that there's public safety at the same time while doing that. So it kind of really modernizes and opens the door for people perhaps who are educated outside of Manitoba, even outside of the country. It also allows for work to be done by engineers within a specific scope. And it modernizes some of the acts of the registrar and their responsibilities. And so this modernization of the bill, I think, is something that the engineers and geoscientists have been working on and refining and fine-tuning over the past number of years. It's good that we are able to move this forward in the legislature so that we can ensure that the industry doesn't get stagnated by old regulation. And so we're happy to move this one forward today. We want to ensure and make sure that all engineers and geoscientists in Manitoba know that we're very thankful for the important work that they do to help build our province. And we want to make sure that their industry and their profession continues to have those opportunities in the future. I think this bill is a part of that, and we need to ensure that we invest in that profession, invest in infrastructure in general, and make sure that we can continue to build Manitoba properly, safely, equitably, and ensuring that we keep those jobs here in Manitoba, and so that our economy continue to grow at the same time that we're helping that profession and all Manitobans. So I'll leave my comments and remarks at that, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much.
The honourable member for River Heights.
Madam Speaker, I put a few words on the record on Bill 233, the Engineering and Geoscientist Professions Amendment Act. This bill has three primary goals, three primary changes. First, simplifying administrative procedures and language. Second, removing some barriers to practice, particularly for people who are immigrants or coming in here with specified scopes of practice. And three, increasing transparency and protection of the public. I was pleased to hear the presentation of Mr. Michael Gregoire of the Engineering Geoscientists Manitoba. He's the Director of Professional Standards for Engineers Geoscientists Manitoba and represents the association's interest, and he presented at committee. He went through the process, which took 3 years for the association to work with the provincial government and various MLAs and staff to develop the amendments. The change, which I believe is really the most interesting, is the amendments which allow new immigrants or others coming into Manitoba on a temporary basis to be able to practice here. These changes basically streamline the process for new registrations for people who are out of province or just coming into province, permitting the registrar to approve certificates of authorization and licenses for out-of-jurisdiction applicants. The approval follows standards set by the Council in the Manual of Admissions, and the registrar also conducts a very thorough review of these applications following the standards, and in doing so speeds up the registration process to permit individuals to begin work in the province. This removes significant barriers which are currently present. The association has also introduced a correction to the registration requirements for temporary licensees who are licensed in an outside jurisdiction who work and reside in Manitoba. Members who hold a specified scope of practice license will now be allowed to hold a certificate of authorization to operate partnership, a corporation, or other legal entity offering engineering or geoscientific services. This will allow those with specified scope licenses to start their own businesses here in Manitoba and to expand operations and their services to Manitobans. This will enhance the ability to have services delivered by engineers in Manitoba and will make it easier for those who are coming from outside of Manitoba to work here. This is, I believe, an important step forward, and I think one that other colleges and organizations who are involved in looking at how better to help bring in and license members, individuals who come from outside of province. So I am, on behalf of the Manitoba Liberal Party and the Manitoba Liberal Caucus, saying we're very pleased to support this bill and look forward to it becoming law very soon. Thank you.
Is the House ready for the question? The question before the House is concurrence and third reading of Bill number 233, the Engineering and Geoscientific Professions Amendment Act. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed? Agreed, and so ordered. I declare the motion carried. The Honourable Acting Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the members of the House this morning for cooperation in moving those bills through. Madam Speaker, will you canvass the House to see if there's a willingness to call at 11 o'clock?
Is there a willingness of the House to call at 11 o'clock? Agreed, and so ordered. The hour being 11 a.m., we will now move to private members' resolution. The resolution before us this morning is resolution number 25, calling on the federal government to stand in unity with the Manitoba Legislature and support human rights of Iranian protesters. The Honourable Member for Fort White.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move, seconded by the member from Brandon East. Therefore, be resolved that the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba call on the federal government to stand with the people of Iran and adequately support Iranians and work to protect the people of Iran.
It has been moved by the Honourable Member for Fort White, seconded by the Honourable Member for Brandon East. Therefore, be it resolved that the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba call on the federal government to stand with the people of Iran and adequately support Iranians and work to protect the people of Iran. The Honourable Member for Fort White.
Thank you, Thank you, Madam Speaker. Say her name, Mahsa Amini. Say her name, Mahsa Amini. Say her name, Mahsa Amini. On September 16, 2022, a 22-year-old female was arrested, beaten, and killed because it was deemed that she was not wearing her headscarf properly by the so-called morality police in Iran. Since then, protests have erupted all over the world in some 160 cities. And some of the biggest protests have happened right here in Canada. The ongoing popular uprising in Iran against the Islamic Republic is now in its 39th day, and so is the ruthless crackdown on the people of Iran. In the span of just 5 weeks, over 200 people have been killed, and at least 23 of them have been children. Hundreds have been injured, and thousands more have been arrested. This violent crackdown must stop, and the people of Iran must be set free. These protesters are sacrificing their lives for their most basic human rights. The UN Human Rights Office has said that it is deeply worried by the unabated violent response by the security forces against protesters and reports of arbitrary arrests and killings in detention centers. The sustained nationwide unrest is one of the biggest uprisings in the country's recent histories. It is also the first mainstream women-led protest in recent years in Iran. On October 14th, a 16-year-old girl, Asra Panihi, died after protesters say she was beaten. Many of her fellow students and teachers were also reportedly beaten. 16-year-old Serena Esmeralda was also beaten on September 23rd. Nika Shakaramani, 16-year-old. Masha Maguyi, 18-year-old. These are real women and children who have been beaten and murdered. These are just a few names of the growing list of murdered women and men during these most recent protests. The ongoing uprising is not calling for reforms, but demands fundamental political and social changes towards a free, democratic Iran that protects the rights of all Iranians and does not export terrorism to the regions of the world. I was honored to attend a protest this last weekend with a few hundred Winnipeggers from all various backgrounds at the very steps of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in support and solidarity with the people of Iran. I was very happy to see a few members opposite attend as well, the member from St. Vital and the member from Burroughs, who also spoke very passionately about supporting the people of Iran and standing for a free and just Iran, and I hope they will do that today with this resolution. Today is their chance and the chance of their colleagues to put their actions behind their words, to stand on the right side of history, freedom, and justice, and vote in favor of this resolution supporting the people of Iran. As you may recall, I stood here in this House a few weeks ago and gave my private member statement about Flight PS-752 that was shot down by 2 missiles from the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a flight in which 176 lives were taken, 138 of them having direct ties to Canada, and 55 of them being Canadian citizens themselves. I spoke of hope and optimism for a brighter future. Today, I hope to further stoke that flame and hope towards a brighter future for the people of Iran, and today is one step forward for that. But the freedom, the fight for justice doesn't stop at the tree planting, memorial, protests, and it won't stop today with this passing of this resolution, hopefully. The fight for freedom will continue. The fight for action must be loud and clear, and we must act. That is why we are here as elected officials. While I acknowledge the federal government, Ottawa, has made some announcements and efforts to support the people of Iran, I will note that it is not enough. The Liberal Member of Parliament South himself stated that the federal government should do more, and he himself will call on Justin Trudeau to do more to support the people of Iran. So I am here today asking that we send a loud and clear message to Ottawa and to Liberal government to do more. The IRGC has terrorized the people of Iran for decades and has openly declared support for other terrorist organizations such as Hezbollah and Hamas, both which are listed in Canada on as terrorist entities. Yet, for some reason, the Canadian federal Liberal government refuses to put the IRGC on the terrorist list, even though in 2018, the Trudeau government voted to list the IRGC as a terrorist entity. Despite the motion being adopted by the House of Commons, The Liberal government has yet to list this organization as a terrorist entity. The time for empty words and hollow announcements is over. It's time for the Liberal government to take action to support the Iranian people's struggle for freedom and list the IRGC as a terrorist entity. The people for Iran are not calling for war. They do not want war. They do not need war. They simply want their human rights, their freedom, their peace, and justice. They are calling for support. They are calling for outside powers to aid and assist them. They are asking for help. Will we not help them? They are calling to impose targeted sanctions on the leaders of operatives, oligarchs, lobbyists of the Islamic Republic, which can be done by the federal government. This will send a strong message that we will not have conversation, dialogue, or debate with organizations with practices such as the Islamic Republic of Iran and the IRGC. We will stop negotiating with criminal states and criminal operatives. They are calling for the safe release of all prisoners wrongfully detained and illegally held in Iranian prisons. While the federal government has barred dozens of people and entities from entering Canada and doing business in Canada with most Canadian firms, I'm not sure what most Canadian firms means, but that's what their policy said, they will stop them from doing business with most Canadian firms. This is not enough. While this sounds like a good idea, a professor at the University of Ottawa has said that there's a big difference between announcing sanctions on people and actually applying them. Canada has traditionally had difficulty fully implementing sanctions it announces. So what good is it then, more empty words? Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister said, Canada continues to use all of its tools at its disposal to respond to Iranian's regime violation of human rights and its threats to regional peace and security, and yet it has not added the IRGC to the terrorist list. We need action. It is evident that the Islamic regime in Iran intends to continue and escalate the inhumane violence against its own citizens. So we need action. In spite of all the violent crackdowns on the demonstrations happening in Iran, protesters are still coming out to the streets, and women are and have remained at the forefront of this protest. This is not the first time it has happened, but hopefully this will be the last time. It will only be the last time for the people of Iran if they have international support. And that is what we are calling on for today. We have to do more than just simply speak words. There is a revolution coming for justice and freedom in Iran. Throughout history, it has never been so strong as the call is now. And you will have to ask yourself, what side of history are you on? Our government and everyone in this House is opposed to discrimination in any form. Human rights are important for all legislators to uphold, and we have a duty to protect them, all human rights, whether they be in Canada or elsewhere. So I humbly ask the members opposite to vote in favor of this resolution, and let's all stand together with the people of Iran. I'm going to quote the president of the Iranian community in Manitoba. He said this last weekend. People in Iran are not backing down. So it would be a shame for us here in a free democratic country to back down. This is the least we can do. We will keep up the pressure. We will keep up our voice because while so many have done, so much more can be done. I hope that we as members of the Legislative Assembly in Manitoba will come together today and do more and support the people of Iran and human rights. Thank you.
I would just like to remind the House that the noon recess will take place at 11:41 due to the House being called at 11 o'clock early. A question period of up to 10 minutes will be held, and questions may be addressed in the following sequence. The first question may be asked by a member from another party. Any subsequent questions must follow a rotation between parties. Each independent member may ask one question, and no question or answer shall exceed 45 seconds. The member for Union Station.
Thank you. Can the member for Fort White tell us why it's so important for MLAs to stand in solidarity with Iranian people during this time of crisis?
The member for Fort White.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Speaker, and I want to thank the member from Union Station for that very important question. And it is of utmost importance for MLAs to stand for human rights and justice across the world. It is our duty as elected officials to stand up anytime we see this violation happening. So it is my duty, it is all of our duties to stand up and voice our support for the people of Iran, calling on stronger measurements from the federal government to protect and support the people of Iran. I myself am honored to lend my voice behind that, and I hope that members opposite and everyone in this Legislative Assembly will also feel that way today.
The member for Brandon East.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acting Deputy Speaker. I know the member in his preamble mentioned a few things that are happening in the community, but I'm wondering if the member can explain the contribution of the Iranian community right here in Manitoba.
The member for Fort White.
I want to thank the member for Brandon East for that great question. The Iranian community, if you haven't had an opportunity to be involved with, is one of the most beautiful communities I've had the pleasure and honor to be involved with. They are so welcoming. They are so fun. They are peaceful. They are loving. Their arts, their music, their culture, their history of their people is beautiful. So, I encourage all members in this room, if they haven't had the opportunity to reach out to them. It is a growing, vibrant community in Manitoba, and is only going to grow larger and larger. And I thank them for the contribution of this mosaic of Manitoba that we now all call home.
The member for River Heights.
My question to the MLA for Fort White. Can the member provide us with a list of actions which the current provincial Conservative government has done with respect to the situation in Iran?
The member for Fort White.
I want to thank the member for River Heights for his question. And the member recalls this resolution is calling on the federal government to do more and support the people of Iran. This resolution here is calling on the Liberal government to do more. Our government has made it very clear throughout history that we stand on the side of human rights and justice. We support people's right to choose how they worship, how they live their life, how they make any decisions when it comes to their human rights and freedoms. And we are now asking the federal government to step up in that regards and not just give lip service and add people to a list, and to follow through on the promises they have made of putting the IRGC on the terrorist list.
The member's time has expired. The member for Union Station.
Can the member identify what actions specifically the federal government should take or could take to support the women of Iran, the women, the girls, and gender diverse peoples of Iran who were leading these protests?
The member for Fort White.
Thank you very much. I again want to thank the member for the Union Station for this great question. There are a lot of things the federal government can do, and there are certain things that the federal government is doing to help and protect the people of Iran, but there is more they can do. They can, as I said in my statement, forcefully and unequivocally demand the release of all prisoners, thousands of prisoners being held in Iran, unlawfully. We call on the federal government to take action on that. We call on the federal government to immediately designate the ambassadors or other representatives of the Islamic regime and have them expelled from Canada, to refuse to negotiate them. There are actions such as putting the IRGC on the terrorist list, not just listing 10,000 people and not allowing them into Canada, not allowing them.
The member's time has expired. The member for Swan River.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague and member from Fort White for bringing this very important issue on human rights forward. Can the member share specifically how this resolution will affect his constituency?
The member for Fort White.
Sorry. I want to thank the member for Swan River for that question. This resolution won't have a direct effect per se on my constituency. Yes, there is Iranian community in my constituency. Yes, it is a growing population, and I was honored to take part in the memorial that the Iranian community had created to mark the 176 lives taken with the tree planting that is in the riding of Fort White. But this resolution is larger than that. This resolution calls on the federal government to support all the people of Iran. So wherever they may live in any of our constituencies, this resolution is designed to help them and help the people of Iran.
The member for Union Station.
Can the member share with us what he thinks that individual Manitobans can do to support the protests in Iran and the Iranian community here in Manitoba?
The member for Fort White.
I want to thank the member for Union Station again for another wonderful question. What can individuals do? That's the question that we get asked all the time. What can I do? I'm just one voice. Well, one voice has a ripple effect. You throw one stone in the lake, you got ripples going all across, and that's what's happening in Iran right now. And that's what's going to happen throughout the world. So I encourage members, or I encourage individuals to reach out to your MPs, to reach out to your MLAs, to sign petitions, to get involved in organizations, to show up to rallies, to show up to protests, to lend your voice of support behind the people being persecuted in Iran and stand for freedom and justice. So get involved at any level if you're able to.
The member for Seine River.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd also like to commend my colleague from Fort White on bringing forward this very important resolution, and I'd also like him to expand a little bit on the current situation going on in Iran.
The member for Fort White.
I want to thank the member for Seine River for that question. You know, the situation in Iran is not a good one. It is very dire and sad. Over 200 lives have been lost, countless children, dozens of children murdered and beaten, and people are still fighting. They are coming to the streets in thousands and thousands to ask for their freedom and justice. So the situation is not great, and what compounds that is that the IRGC and the Islamic regime is controlling internet and TV access. So they're limiting the messaging getting out. And yet the message is still getting out. People are still being heard, and the cry for help is still there. So again, I implore everyone to please lend your voice behind this important resolution and call on the federal government.
The member's time has expired. The member for Union Station.
I thank the member for Fort White for bringing this forward, and I know that he's spoken out on this issue. Also, several colleagues of ours on this side of the House have also been very vocal on this issue. The MLA for St. John's, I think, has probably been the most vocal on this particular matter. And I'm wondering if the member for Fort White can share with us the importance of individual MLAs speaking out on this particular issue, but more broadly on the issue of injustice and discrimination against any members of our communities.
Member for Fort White.
I want to thank the member for Union Station, and I want to thank a lot of the members in this House today, actually every member in this House today, including the member for St. John's, and members on our side for advocating and championing human rights and justice wherever that may be, not just in Iran, not in Canada, everywhere, wherever we see it. So my reply to the member from Union Station would be simply, always lend your voice to the right side of history. Always do the right thing. Stand up. Let it be heard. Be known that you are on the right side of history and you stand for human rights and justice. So get involved in everywhere you can. Thank you.
The member for Brandon East.
Speaker, I know one question that always comes up in the House. I'll repeat that because I know my thing wasn't on. One question that always comes up in the House for all resolutions and bills pertains to consultation. And I'm wondering if the member from Fort White could explain to the House or describe to the House the process he went through and who he consulted with for this resolution.
The member for Fort White.
I want to thank the member from Brandon East for that great question. And consultation was the backbone of this resolution. Consultation with the Iranian community of Manitoba, consultation with the University of Manitoba Iranian Student Association, Consultation with families of Flight PS 752. Consultation on a resolution was the utmost importance in this resolution, as it is designed to help the people of Iran. So I felt like I really needed to hear from them and have constant consultation with them. Also reached out to advocates in Toronto and Edmonton and Ottawa on this issue as well, and unanimously they all supported this resolution and are very happy and honored to be part of this.
Time for questions has expired. Debate is now opened. The member for St. John's.
Deputy Speaker, I want to thank the member for Fort White for bringing forward this important resolution. Certainly, I think that this is one of those rare moments in the House where we all support and are on the right side of history. There is no other choice, or there should not be any other choice, but to support the women, girls, gender diverse folks, and people of Iran. We've watched, the last 6 weeks as Iranian women and girls have courageously led a revolution. And I always say this, and some of the best revolutions throughout history have been led by women. And I would submit to the House and those watching that this is one of those historic moments. And, it cannot be overstated enough or stressed enough the enormous amount of courage that it takes for Iranian women and girls to get up, to go against the Islamic Republic regime, a theocracy of oppression, of savage repression against its people. And of course, Deputy Speaker, we know that the spark for this revolution was the murder of Mahsa Amini, who was taken into custody by the morality police, by Iranian security forces, was beaten and died and was murdered. And I think it's really important for the language that we use. She was murdered. She didn't die in custody. She was murdered by an oppressive, corrupt regime. Again, women and girls of all ages have led these protests and demonstrations. They've done so by removing their headscarves, their hijabs. They've been in the face of the Islamic Republic security chanting anti-government slogans and confronting head-on this oppression. That is something extraordinary to bear witness to, even from afar. What should be perfectly clear, and I see that my colleague, the member for Rial, is with us here today, and I know I'm not supposed to be saying that. But yeah, I do want to just note to the House that the member and I had the opportunity on Friday to sit with Iranian women and girls at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights for an event that was put on by the Islamic Social Services Association and the Canadian Council for Muslim Women. And I would suggest that both the member for Rial and I are very grateful for that, that panel discussion, and particularly for Auntie Shahina Siddiqui, who is, everybody that knows Auntie Shahina Siddiqui knows that she is brilliant and unapologetic. And one of the things that she made clear, abundantly clear on Friday, that, and that should be understood, is that the current situation that we see unfolding in Iran is not necessarily about the hijab. Of course, it is in many respects in the sense of the right for women and girls to choose and the freedom to choose what they do with their bodies and their beings, but also that the enforcement of the hijab in this present moment is also a symbol of the greater oppression from the Islamic Republic to all its people. We had someone present to us, a professor, an Iranian professor, who made it very, very clear and did a phenomenal job mapping out the level of oppression that Iran has been seeing for the last 40 years. One thing that I found incredibly interesting was she said that there's effectively no middle class anymore in Iran, and that the gap between those very rich or those in power and those in poverty is huge, and that people are literally starving in the streets of Iran because of the corruption of the Islamic Republic. And that they're not able to choose the jobs that they want to do. They're not able to feed their families the way that they want to do. And the thing about oppression, the thing that is 100% a given, is that people will only take oppression for so long until they rise up and demand change. And that is what we're seeing here in Iran, being led by women and girls. It is important to note that Amnesty International, as of today, has said that since the start of this revolution, that 23 children have been murdered by the Islamic Republic regime. And I want to just note just a couple of them, Deputy Speaker. Nika Shakarami was just on the verge of turning 17. She loved to sing and to dance. She was at a protest where she burned her hijab, and she was taken by the security forces and was murdered. Now, some of the things that are said and whether those have been verified was she was violated while she was in custody, brutally violated and murdered. This is a child, 16 years old, who was simply exercising her right to live free. Serena Ismailadal is a 16-year-old YouTube blogger who often posted on women's rights and the rejection of forced hijab. And I've gone on some of her videos because I wanted to honor her little life. I wanted to see what she stood for. I wanted to see and hear and learn what she shared with the world in her short 16 years. And I want to just share this quote that she says, and I quote, "There are more restrictions for women, like the mandatory hijab, and many more restrictions that don't exist for men," end quote. I think that is very important. It's very important that we lift up the voices of women and girls that are on the front lines of this struggle for freedom and the right to choose. I want to just say this. I want to acknowledge very quickly, Deputy Speaker, all of the acts of resistance that we've been seeing over these last 6 months or 6 weeks. We have seen Iranian women cutting their beautiful hair, burning their hijabs. We've seen two women that stood in the streets and they started Hugs for a Sorrowful Nation, where they were giving out hugs as acts of resistance. We've seen schoolgirls making videos in their classrooms with their backs towards the camera, hiding their faces. We've seen protests in schoolyards. We've seen world-class climber El-Nazad Rekabi taking off her hijab in sport. We also now know right now she is at home and under threat. We've seen medical students and students at all of the universities that have rose up in protest against Islamic Republic security forces. We've seen Iranian shopkeepers and factory workers who went on strike. We've seen a teachers' union who have demanded a strike to protect their students. These are phenomenal, courageous acts of resistance. And I want those folks, I want the people of Iran, particularly the women, girls, and gender diverse folks, to know that I see them, that we see them, that we stand in solidarity for them, with them, and that we demand more than just performative actions. Expel their ambassadors from your country. Have sanctions on...
The member's time has expired. The member for Rossmere.
On September 16th last year, a 22-year-old female was arrested, beaten, and killed. Why? Because it was deemed that she was not wearing her headscarf properly by the so-called morality police in Iran. Her name, Masha Amini. Since then, protests have erupted worldwide. About 160 cities of people saying this should not be. And sadly, it's not an isolated event. In Iran, we see these protests with increasing frequency and with growing crowds. Protesting has not been met well by government forces. The Iranian security police cracking down, arresting thousands of protesters, as has already been noted, many of them women and girls. It is estimated that over the last 5 or so weeks, over 200 people have been killed, more than 10% children. Killed by their own government, not killed by some faction, not killed by some rogue group that the government opposes, no, killed by the government. Killed by the Iranian government, killed by a government which opposes its own citizens' right to think differently, to live differently, to behave differently. And that has cost these people, many of them, their lives, not to mention the fear that every arrest, every imprisonment, every beating, and every death puts into the population, the wider population. This is not peace. This is not democracy. The UN has described this situation as deeply worrying. And yet Iran continues to have status at the UN, even while it controls its own internet, the internet access of its own people, even while it censors the news that they see, and as much as it can, the news that comes out of Iran. About 8,000 people have been arrested, which is a staggering number, and those are estimates. I'd like to name some of those who have died. A 16-year-old girl, Asra Panahi, died. Allegedly, she was beaten to death by state security forces. I have a 16-year-old daughter. It's also reported that fellow students and teachers were also beaten in the same incident. Another 16-year-old girl, Serena, I hope I say the last name correctly, Esmail Zada, was also beaten to death on September 23rd. This isn't something that happened 10 years ago or 5 years ago. No, this is happening right now. We're talking about dates in the last few weeks. Nika Shakarami. Oh, another young girl, age 16, murdered by her own government for having a different opinion and saying so. Masa Mogoyi, 18, also reported killed in September. Why? For breaking the law, for threatening other people's lives, for doing some violent action that puts others at risk? No, none of that. Just for having a different opinion. And who knows? The people that we don't know about. After all, the Iranian government censoring all the information that gets out. This stuff is leaked out by underground journalists and people who can get access to the internet before it's cut off or before they are censored too. And so we're not just calling here for some reforms or maybe some tweaks or adjustments. We're calling for an overhaul. We're calling for democracy to take root in Iran. We're calling for the Canadian government to throw its weight behind this resolution and other initiatives like it, to declare the IRGC a terrorist organization. Because whatever our differences in this chamber, and yes, there are lots of them, we all agree that you have the right to a different opinion. You have the right to live differently. You have the right to choose differently. You have the right to worship differently. You have the right to believe differently. Not in Iran. No, there's only one right way there, and that's what we're speaking up against. That's what we take issue with, Mr. Assistant Deputy Speaker. That's what we are concerned about. We're concerned that people in our constituencies have family members in a country where if you believe the wrong thing, you could be beaten. You could be murdered by the government thugs, the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is not some recently gathered gang. This isn't some rogue unit of the army. No. This is an organization which has been around for some time. This is an organization which is armed, which is organized, which is state-sponsored. This organization is brutal. This organization is violent. This organization is murderous. This organization shot down Flight PS752. We know this. The international community knows this. The Canadian government has known this. And only a few weeks ago did the Canadian government say that they're going to take some steps, and I applaud those steps. But I want to know, why is the IRGC not on the list of terrorist organizations? Steps are good, sanctions are good, you can't come to Canada. These are all good things. I support them. That organization, though, needs to be on the terrorist list for Canada. What message would that send to the United Nations? What message would that send to other countries? What message would that send to our Iranian communities here in our city of Winnipeg, in our province of Manitoba, and across the nation of Canada, that we're not just going to make life more difficult for these organizations, we will name them for what they are, as terrorist organizations, Mr. Assistant Deputy Speaker. When that flight was shot down over 3 years ago, 176 people died. 138 of them had direct ties to Canada. In fact, 55 of them were Canadians. The IRGC has terrorized the people of Iran for decades. It has openly declared support for other organizations that we have called terrorists, Hezbollah, Hamas. But we won't call them terrorists. We need to, Mr. Assistant Deputy Speaker, and we need to, in this room today, send that statement to Ottawa calling on them to put these guys on the list. It's not something that you do flippantly. It's not something that you do carelessly. You don't just throw an organization on the terrorist list every time there's someone you disagree with. We shouldn't do that, and that's not what we're asking for. There haven't been, nobody's been put on the terrorist list, no organization, I think, since 2003. If I recall correctly, there are only 9 organizations, nine regimes on the official terrorist list. But I think it's time we add a 10th, the IRGC. I think it's time we send that message to them, to the international community, and to the Iranian community in our city, that making life difficult for terrorists is not enough. Saying, don't come here on a holiday is not enough. Saying, don't do business with Canadian companies is not enough. The next step, and maybe there are more, is calling them out as a terrorist organization, listing them on a list that has not been added to since 2003, nearly 20 years, and we should be cautious. But what more do these guys have to do as they arrest, as they beat, as they murder women and girls for having a different opinion? I say that is a terrorist regime, and I condemn it, and I call all of us to condemn it here.
The member's time has expired. The member for Union Station.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Deputy Speaker. I am grateful for the opportunity to put a few words on the record in regards to this resolution, and I do want to thank the member for Fort White for bringing this resolution forward. I think it's pretty clear that members of this assembly are united on this particular issue. It is a human rights issue, and while we see what is taking place in Iran, we recognize that there are many Iranian folks in Manitoba, there are many Iranian diaspora who are doing what they can to see positive change happen in Iran. And it's already been stated that it is women and girls and gender diverse peoples in Iran and outside of Iran who are at the forefront of these protests and at the forefront of demanding that their basic human rights be upheld and recognized. And I do think it's very important to recognize all folks who are lending their voices to this issue, to acknowledge and lift up all Iranian folks who are fighting very hard on this particular issue. But I also do recognize the significance of those within Iranian communities who are even more impacted by this regime, and that is women, girls, and gender diverse peoples. The Islamic Republic of Iran was founded after the Iranian Revolution in 1979. And since then, very consistently and very openly, the regime has shown consistent disregard for the rights of religious minority communities who do not share the state religion. It's important for folks to know, although a lot of the dialogue and the discourse has been focused on hijab laws and restrictions on women's and girls' and gender diverse bodies and rights, it's important for folks to know what this oppressive regime has meant beyond that narrative. The Republic has imposed a death sentence for blasphemy, insulting religious sanctities, or identifying as gay, and has consistently surveyed, harassed, arrested, and imprisoned those who do not follow the state's definition of Islam. Now, whenever we see oppression and injustice, it is really important that we also highlight those within targeted communities who are even further marginalized, even further targeted, who perhaps have even less capacity to have their voices heard and the voices of their families and communities heard. In this particular circumstance, it's important for us to recognize that gender diverse peoples, trans peoples within the Iranian community have most definitely been standing up and speaking up and pushing back, and are folks who in some cases are even further targeted and marginalized, but perhaps are not as visible or vocal in terms of the global narrative around this particular issue. And so I say that those comments to ensure that we are lifting up those folks as well and recognizing the great risks that many of those folks continue to face. And quite frankly, not just in Iran, but certainly, diaspora face those concerns and those oppressive realities as well, including folks here in Manitoba who are navigating their identities as gender diverse, as one example, peoples, and also ensuring that as whole people, they're able to have their voices heard in this movement and their needs recognized within this movement. It is, I think, very important that a resolution like this is debated in this House and that we are all contributing our voices to this discourse and calling on the federal government to take concrete actions. It's already been stated several times, and I'm not going to repeat the remarks of several of my colleagues, but there are tangible steps the federal government can and should have taken, quite frankly, to this point already. And it is incumbent on us to bring resolutions like this forward and to take other steps to call on the federal government to do what is necessary in order to ensure that human rights are fought for, upheld, and recognized in Iran, but that our role as Canadian citizens, as members of legislative assemblies, is to do our part within our capacity. And the federal government does have the capacity and the ability to take certain steps. And so I implore the federal government to do just that. There is a lot of dialogue around the dire state of human rights in Iran, specifically again for women, girls, gender diverse peoples. I attended a protest here at the legislature, a peaceful protest, several weeks ago now. There were other elected officials there. Our colleague, the MLA for St. John's, was there. And, that was a really difficult day. It was an honor and humbling to be in that space with members of the Iranian community who are leaders, with youth, with elders, with student organizers, with folks who you could feel as soon as you walked upon the peaceful protests, you could feel the weight and the gravity of what it is that they're facing, that their loved ones are navigating. The hurt and the pain was palpable, quite frankly. And that was talked about at that gathering, at that protest. It's a difficult reality to know that in such inhumane and depraved ways, people are being harmed by their government. And there was another aspect of that gathering that really stood out to me, and that was that in the midst of all of that pain, in the midst of all of that suffering, there was also present this feeling of hope. There is also very much present this feeling of togetherness and unitedness. And folks of varying identities were at that gathering and took up space and contributed their voices. And it was very clear that people are hopeful that change is happening and that change, overwhelming and necessary change, is very possible. That to me was inspiring. It was inspiring that the Iranian community would be so open and welcoming to everybody. Everyone is welcome to contribute their voice and support this incredibly important revolutionary movement, this moment in time, but that there is a tremendous amount of hope for the changes that can and need to happen. My final comments, I want to offer some remarks to the member for Fort White, and I see this sincerely. This isn't me trying to be pointed or anything, but the member in his remarks talked about his government's record on advocating against discrimination and always being on the right side of issues. And I think it's very important for the member for Fort White, and quite frankly for all of us, to recognize that here in Manitoba, this governments have made big mistakes, have actually perpetuated inequities. This member, the member for Fort White, should be well aware, if he's not aware, that his government has been subject to human rights complaints from members of the queer and trans community because his government refused to respect the gender diversity of the residents of this province and refused to ensure that those folks could have access to the gender-affirming ID that they deserve. And I don't raise that to be adversarial at all. This is a good resolution. I say that because it's important for us to be able to honestly reflect on any government's role in either uplifting or in working against the advancements of human rights. And so it's important for all of us to be honest about these things so that, we recognize that injustice absolutely anywhere contributes to injustice everywhere. We can and should and need to do better here in our own province, here in our own country. This resolution, everybody being in support of it, is a great moment and a good example of how important it is to be united and to call on the federal government to do better. And I also call on all of us in our own capacity, on our own sides of the House, to do better by all citizens of all backgrounds right here in Manitoba. We stand in solidarity with the Iranian community.
Member's time has expired. The member for River Heights.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the killing of Mahsa Amini has sparked widespread protests and calls for action and calls for change in Iran, and it is badly needed. I want to begin by referencing a singer, Shervin Hajipour, who wrote a song, Bari, meaning because of or for the sake of, basically putting forward reasons for people to join this rapidly expanding process which has spread all over Iran and around the world. The words of the song and the song has been viewed by tens of millions of people, 40 million in the first day, apparently. It's become an anthem for women, freedom, and an ordinary life. And I'm going to read 2 verses. These are the reasons for joining in the protests. For dancing in the streets, for our fear when kissing loved ones, for my sister, your sister, our sisters, for the changing of rotted minds, for embarrassment due to being penniless, for yearning for an ordinary life, for the child laborer and his dreams, for this dictatorial economy, for this polluted air. And it goes on. The resolution we deal with today calls on the federal government to act. And we in the Liberal caucus are fully 100% in support of the resolution. We hope it passes. We hope it passes unanimously today, and we hope that the federal government will act. But this resolution is not enough. The province must also act. It is not enough to have a government which dials 1-800 federal government every time there's a problem. I asked a member of the Iranian community, what can the province do? And I was given 3 options. 1, provincial trade. Iran has historically been one of Manitoba's agricultural customers. Provincially, the government, in collaboration with the federal authorities to make sure the items of agricultural trade are not dual use, have no military application. 2, the provincial nominee program, to make sure that Iranian authorities, their families, members of the Basij militia, or members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are not permitted to benefit from the provincial nominee program and prevent investment from those members in Manitoba. And 3rd, educational institutions, provincial responsibility, could prevent the enrollment of family members of Iranian authorities, members of the Basij militia, or members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in higher educational institutions in Manitoba. We need
provincial action as well as federal action. As Nassim Nicholas Taleb mentions in Skin in the Game, it is important not just to call out on others to act. It is important to put your own skin in the game. It is important for the province to act. We can't just have a province which dials 1-800 federal government. We must have a province which gets into the game, which acts on this really important global issue, this important of what is happening in Iran. I call, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the province to act. The province should act by engaging members of the Iranian community. They are very sophisticated. They are wonderful people. They will have lots of suggestions. But the bottom line is the province must act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there any further speakers, or is the House ready for the question? Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the resolution? Agreed and so ordered. I declare the resolution carried. The honourable member for Fort White.
Acting Deputy Speaker.
On the point of order?
No. Yes. Point of order? Yeah. Point of order. Ask for unanimous.
The member for Fort White on a point of order?
Deputy Speaker, ask for unanimous vote. Unanimous. Consent. Ask that the resolution be approved unanimously.
Is it the will of the House to have this resolution passed unanimously? Agreed. Agreed and so ordered. The hour being 12. Oh. The member for Rossmere.
Mr. Assistant Deputy Speaker, could you canvass the House, see if it's the will of the House to call it 12 noon?
Is it the will of the House to call it 12 noon? Agreed and so ordered. The hour being 12 p.m., this House is recessed and stands recessed until 1:30 p.m.